Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Generally Casual. As normal, it's Michael, and I'm talking to you today. I'm also joined by Richard and Corey. Hey,
I like this.
Hey, guys.
Let's keep it that way.
How you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Having a good day today?
Yeah, pretty good.
Well, it's going to be my job today to bring that down.
I am ready.
Yeah,
I'm ready for the hurt.
So, Corey, since this is your idea, technically bring us through
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yes.
I think it's established. You're just trying to not take blame if this idea fails.
I want no responsibility if it works or does not work.
So the goal is to blame Richard. Okay,
Yes.
got it.
Noted.
So
I will take all the praise.
We are trying to transition into having some extra YouTube content for you guys, just for fun. And we thought it would be a fun topic to do something along the lines of on this day. And what I mean by that is a lot of people, and I'm sure you guys included, have had many a discussion about Florida Man and typing in on the internet, like, a Florida man does what on this date? And just finding that a lot of crazy stuff does happen in Florida all the time.
365 days a year.
It's always Florida, no matter what day it is.
No
It's
matter what
Florida.
day.
So I thought it would be interesting if we look on a larger scale and travel the world of crazy stuff and good stuff and fun stuff. Anything interesting that happens on a specific day, I think it would be cool if we can investigate that a little bit. So we can then go in a little more in depth and add our own little fun spin, which I like to call Pin It or Bin It. And we can have a tier list of best and worst days and go from there.
Oh, we could split it. We could put that on the worst day tier list and then a best day tier list.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
We have so many ideas for this.
This day.
Oh, and then also you have what we'd like to do is have a poll position of like the craziest or most like interesting day. That's the pin it. That's the poll position at the top that every other day's got to beat.
Yeah.
Might not know it yet, but there's always more days coming.
So our first day is September 8th. So we'll be discussing that because technically that's the day of this recording come out.
Yes.
So our goal today is to determine, is September 8th a pin it or bin it day?
Yes.
Are we going to throw it away in the trash? Or are we going to put it as a star day of all days? And I also like this idea because we did this a lot in music history class where we kind of were like, oh, what happened back how do you schedule things in history? What occurred when what occurred? Like what was happening when Mozart was around? What also was happening when World War II was around? And
little timeline.
Yeah, it's really interesting to figure out what's going on around the same time in history, because a lot of time when you're thinking about history, you go, oh, well, that's when the Civil War was. But for other people, there's a more prolific thing that happened during that time to them. So I did a lot of research on this today, and I will be presenting it all to my brother and good friend Corey.
Yay.
Whoa, easy there. Good co-host, Corey.
Yeah, and please let us know what you think about everything that happened on this day. So not the first thing, but the first thing I found interesting as a positive in September 8th, 1883, the North Pacific Railroad across the U.S. was completed. So this was the first railroad that theoretically stretched across the United States. Really, it stretched from, the Wisconsin lakes all the way to Washington. So
interesting.
On September 8th is when the final golden spike was slammed into place.
Got it.
Oh, that's a thing.
Yes.
Golden spike.
Yeah. So if you don't know and have never seen Wild Wild West, when a railroad is completed, the final spike is usually like a media thing. So people yeah.
Is that action comedy movie?
Wild Wild West? Yes.
With Will Smith.
With the
Will
terrible
Smith
one with the
and Kevin Kline.
steampunk train evil guy?
Yeah.
Spider, yes.
The steam spider?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I love how we were talking about something in date and time, and then now it's shifted over to a terrible 90s movie.
That's just such a ridiculous way to be like, if you didn't know about this thing in history that really happens, you didn't notice it in this movie? It was totally made up?
I didn't.
Actually,
if I'm
not mistaken, Wild Wild West might be about this.
Really?
Hey, Cool.
Because
I don't think there were any steam spiders in history.
No, but construction began in 1870, and then when it was finally done, the president, Ulysses S. Grant, is the one who slammed the final spike in. And I believe in Wild Wild West, the same moment occurred, except he was abducted by a giant mechanical spider after that happened.
Okay, you have seen this movie way more recently than I have.
I have not. The last time I watched this movie was probably 7 or 8 years ago.
Wow.
I just remember it.
Yeah, that's insane.
So some stats about this railroad. It stretches 6,800 miles, or 10,900 kilometers.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And was one of the most massive tracks that existed in the United States. It basically shipped wheat, farm products, timber, minerals, consumer. It basically shipped anything people need, consumer products, and anything that factories needed up and down the left and right of the north part of the United States.
Really important for the growth of the states in general, but also kind of a terrible thing as well, considering the cost of the railroad.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if you would think about it, the numerous people who died while creating this, because I believe this is one of the railroads that passed through the Rocky Mountains.
It looks like it. Looks like it went through the northern portion.
And if you could see, like, around the Rockies.
It kind of went around.
Yeah, it tried to go around. And that was the most dangerous, again, casually explaining things. So if I'm wrong, yell at me. Yay. I believe the Rocky Mountains were so dangerous and precarious that many people fell off the mountain while trying to set up the railroad. And they had people who would go up the mountain and drop TNT in little holes in the cliff sides, so that they could blow holes in the mountain itself, so the train could pass through.
Oh, like tunnels and whatnot.
And many times, the TNT would either be a false start, so it wouldn't go off and someone would go check it and explode, or it would explode too quickly and somebody would be too close to it.
Caught in it.
Yeah, and many times this was led to a lot of deaths to people who were put into a position that they needed to work and were almost at that point slave labor, and some of this was built by slave labor.
Yeah.
So it seems as though this is a low tier day, just because it was really positive in the long run for things.
It's still positive.
the human cost was too high and not exactly respectable.
Yeah, I think
we're even.
I did put this in the positive section. Because
yes, the product is positive.
Yeah, exactly. So we ignore the cost of human life and we keep on going.
We'll shove that at the end when we have all of the death.
Do you guys want to bounce back and forth between positive and negatives, or just go from one to the other?
No, we'll start positive and then just slowly degrade our way into
this exactly.
Low positive, and now we're going into higher positive.
Yeah, so the second thing that I found that happened on September 8th was the first episode of the original series of Star Trek, the science fiction television series. It came out in 1966, and the first episode was called The Man Trap.
Mm-hmm.
Have you watched that episode, Richard?
I'm sure I have at some point.
So the reason why this is such a big boon for the United States and the world at large is because this is one of the first, like, huge cult following TV shows that just, kind of like Star Wars, just... everybody got loved it, and
it exploded.
It exploded, and the sheer ideas that were propagated after this came out helped inspire a whole era of scientists. I actually have some things up here that says the Star Trek franchise inspired the Palm and the handheld mobile phone. It inspired the Michael Jones, the chief technologist of Google Earth, who thought the tricorder that could map areas around you, and that gave him the idea of doing Google Earth, of mapping the world. They had a tricorder prize of somebody who can build the closest thing to the medical tricorder that was inside Star Trek.
That's cool.
And then it even led to things, scientists venturing out to doing teleportation. Or doing matter energy transportation and trying to figure out how to do that.
The other thing is that Star Trek was the first kiss on television that was of two people of different skin colors.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
That's crazy.
So it's breaking barriers.
In Star Trek.
Yes. If I'm not mistaken, the actors who were a part of it were very, like, forward thinking and
Yes. So the kind of backstory behind that was it was like a very late thing that they were trying to do, and they didn't know whether or not they were going to get approved, quote unquote, to do it. And at that point, it didn't matter. When they filmed, they were like, "We're going to do this." So, and obviously there was a large amount of uproar, but it is now put down in history as the first kiss on television, like I said. Yeah. And it definitely stemmed a lot more after that, in addition to a lot of other things associated with it as well.
And that's actually a strange leaping off point for my last two positive facts, is these are actually about breaking out of your stereotypical roles.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So the first one, I guess, kind of hesitant about that, but, the Miss America pageant is all about, empowerment of who you are as a person, not just about glitzy, glamoury stuff.
Yeah.
At least that's what, what's the movie? Miss Congeniality showed us. So, a lot of movie references today. So in 1921, Margaret Gorman, a 16-year-old, was the first winner of Atlantic City's pageant's Golden Mermaid Trophy. And during this pageantry, the pageant officials dubbed her the first Miss America. And this is where the Miss America pageant came from. It started in 1921. And there's been yearly or bi-yearly
I don't remember
pageants that have come from this.
I don't necessarily keep track of that.
And this is a huge the people who are Miss America are basically representatives of America, and they go around and they go to a lot of events and they kind of represent who they are and their state.
And usually, I mean, there's now also the like Miss Universe or Miss World pageant as well, which then Miss America goes to.
I hope one day for Miss Universe we have aliens who touch down and we're like, you didn't include us.
Ooh.
Like baseball. We do the World Series, but we only include America. And then my last one, to end the positive thing, but also not so positive, we have the 1916 ride of Augusta and Adeline Van Buren. So why this is such a big an event is these two women wanted to prove that they were just as good as men as military dispatch riders. So they completed a 60-day, 5,500-mile cross-country trip on motorcycles.
We don't have the kilometers for that.
Yes, okay. We don't have the kilometers. Sorry about that.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And they set out to prove that basically, like, women can do it too. Should not just be a male-dominated sector.
Yeah, they're literally riding a mechanized vehicle. They can do it the same.
Yes, exactly. Now, as happened with the first one, there is some major negatives that came with this. So they both proved that they could do it by completing it successfully in 60 days. But after they did it, numerous media sources basically just called them out for just ditching their jobs and their responsibilities, saying, "Oh, well, these two women they're ditching their responsibilities as housewives to just prove a point they don't need to prove." There was another one that basically the newspaper outlet said, "Oh, well, great job, Bike. You did it. You went all the way across the U.S." And completely nixed the fact that these women did it, and they were the ones who gave strength to the bike itself. A bike does not just drive itself across country.
No, that's like if we were to do it in more recent terms, the commentators being like, "And congratulations to Michael Schumacher's car, Ferrari. You did a great job." That was all the Ferrari.
I don't think they had autopilot back in 1916.
Yeah, and there was several reports that were in the same fashion. And on top of that, when they tried to apply for those positions, they were rejected.
Wow.
So they are still praised today and honored for what they did. But it was like right when they did it, it was like all these male news outlets were like, "Who cares?"
Yeah, but now it's kind of become a stick it to the man kind of thing.
Absolutely,
and like the first act of, female rebellion against the norm of the time.
Patriarchy.
Yes,
the patriarchy.
The bullies.
Yeah. So unfortunately, on my list of looking through numerous things. This was the most positive things I could find on September 8th.
The things that are already listed, not the things you're about to list.
The things I'm about to list, we'll probably find which way this day is swinging.
Yeah.
Of a pin it or bin it situation. So the other side of this, and you guys could probably have a little bit more understanding of these things that are going on. Except for the first one. On September 8th, 1900, a hurricane with winds of over 120 miles an hour struck Galveston, Texas, killing over 8,000 people and making it the worst natural disaster in U.S. history. The hurricane and tidal wave also destroyed over 2,500 buildings.
Wow.
This is also considered the fourth worst hurricane in history across the world.
Wow.
So it was the worst natural disaster just because of the scale of the damage, but the hurricane itself was the fourth worst.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I read fourth worst. I didn't see fourth biggest. Because
Huh.
there's a ton of hurricanes that happen that just sit in the ocean, don't do anything.
Yeah.
Well, this is they usually mark these big events by if they touch landfall.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This one also went through a couple. It went through like 5 or 6 different not countries.
Counties?
No, maybe it was country. 5 or 6 other countries going up. I think it was up the Gulf of Mexico.
Okay.
Through the Gulf of Mexico,
got
through the
it.
Caribbean and other places.
Yeah. So their
And
aspect.
they did not take as much damage, but it mainly touched landfall on Galveston, and then it went up to New York. So it was like a really
Wow, that's
long.
a big.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a long hurricane.
Yeah. So to kind of go through, nobody really knows the exact detail, but most news outlets reported about 8,000 being the official reported results of people who passed away. And to detail the buildings, this article said that 7,000 buildings of any use across Galveston were destroyed. And of those 7,000, 3,600 of those were homes.
Gee.
And this is where the stats get kind of crazy. The water level rose 4 feet in 4 seconds, and it rose to a height of 12 feet total throughout the city.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah, and after this hurricane went through, the city of Galveston was officially declared obliterated.
Did they name this hurricane, by the way? Did I miss that?
No, I
Okay.
didn't see one. They might have.
It's before they named hurricanes,
Yeah,
probably.
this was Hurricane.
Yeah. Hurricane. Oh my God.
Yeah. So it was officially obliterated. The city was in ruins. The railroads to the mainland were destroyed, and survivors had little to live on until relief arrived. On September 9th, they established a central relief committee so that chaired by the mayor, Walter C. Jones, and they were supposed to they were in charge of relief efforts, burying the dead, correspondence, distribution of food and water, finances, hospitalization, and basically everything under the sun for how to handle a city that just got destroyed.
Yeah, they didn't have relief from like the National Guard or anything else
So-
like that. That probably wasn't established.
Apparently, it had a regional name,
Oh.
just as the Great Storm of 1900.
Yeah, that's a good name.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's a great name.
They really get the point across.
Yeah. And here's the sad part. There was only 2,000 survivors afterwards.
Yikes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was 8 out of 10 people who died in that city.
To be on brand, I would call this actually Hurricane Karen. It kind of did a lot of stuff.
Boo, Richard, boo.
Terrible.
This is 121 years ago. Get out of here. And so this is the even more despicable part. The dead bodies were so numerous that burying all of them was impossible. Initially, the bodies were collected by what they called dead gangs, and then given to 50 African-American men who were forcibly recruited at gunpoint to load them onto a barge. After they were on the barge, there were 700 bodies upon this boat, and they were all supposed to be brought out to sea and dumped into the ocean. And unfortunately, because of the way currents work, smart people, over half of those bodies washed back
Yeah,
upon
I'm
the
sure.
coast.
They didn't weigh them or anything else. Like they're just, I mean, bodies float.
Yeah.
And also, there's a lot of negative to unpack in that one couple, like the couple
Yeah.
sentences you just said.
And we're going to make it even more negative by saying, oh, after that, they were like, oh, well, the bodies came back. So they set up massive funeral pyres upon the beach and burned bodies for several weeks, day and night after the storm.
That's a lot of pollution.
Yeah. And so the authorities going, human pollution.
They weren't concerned about pollution back then.
And this is even worse to me. After that, the authorities passed out free whiskey to sustain the distraught men who were conscripted to do the gruesome work of collecting and burning the bodies.
Yeah, that's a quick way to forget for the next few hours that what you just did.
I'm sorry I held you at gunpoint and, took advantage of your social status, but
And
here's some whiskey.
Yeah, instead of paying you a bunch of money, we're going to give you alcohol, and then you're going to go back to your life.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, so that's a real downer to start with, and this is not get better.
Oh, boy.
Thanks, America. Okay, so we transition from 1900 to 1941. September 8th again.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, who would've thought?
These things all happened on September 8th.
Yes,
On this day.
on this day. In 1941, the German army began its blockade of Leningrad, which lasted until 1944, so a 3-year blockade. This resulted in the death of many Russian people and civilians. So there's a problem with this.
Mm-hmm.
This didn't actually happen on September 8th.
No.
Oh.
The siege began on September 8th.
Oh,
This is where the Wehrmacht severed the last road to the city. So this is basically to block all the Russian forces from Russia itself so that they couldn't pass and get into Germany. Because I think at this point it was Russia was like, oh, we're going to betray you. And we're going to fight Germany and try to take over Germany.
They did like a reverse siege.
Yes, and sadly enough, it did not work out for Russia, but this also is what's basically stopped Germany's march across Europe itself, because they were fighting on two fronts at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They were fighting on the Poland-France side and Britain side, and they were fighting on the Russian side at the same time. Will probably go down as one of the most successful blockades to a siege, as we look at the stats.
The tiny positive, the overall negative.
Yeah, good. It's Nazis. We wish they would all die, but it's
Controversial clips of the week. But
so, yeah.
it is one of those things where it, unfortunately, kind of like the railroad, the overall positive was still held back by the human cost.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're going to hear about those human costs soon.
Yeah.
So Soviet forces managed to open up a narrow land corridor to the city itself on January 18th, 1943, and then lifted the siege on January 27th, 1944. So a whole year went by where they actually were able to open a small path to the city, but, it didn't work out so well for them. This is the longest and most destructive sieges in history, and possibly the costliest siege in history due to the number of casualties. So I'm going to go through the casualties real quick.
More death.
Over 3 years, the Nazi Army of the North lost around 600,000 people, and most of which I think were all military, all part of the army. On the Russian side, there was 1 million people who were killed or missing. 2.5 million were wounded or sick, and many of those were
Civilians.
Yes, militant civilians. So civilians who had weapons, who could fight, but probably weren't very well trained.
Yeah.
And on top of that, there's some more numbers out there talking about Soviet civilians specifically. But that's basically around 3.5 million people who died on the Russian side and 600,000 who died on the Nazi side.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. Yes.
A lot of people.
If you don't know about Leningrad, you can go research that on yourself.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where a lot of people think of the scale of the war to do with like the Holocaust and stuff like that, and they also forget, like, yes, that's terrible, but there was also these other segments of this same war that had massive losses of life.
Yeah. In addition to this, I didn't put it on the list, but this is also September 8th I don't remember, it was 1942, but was the first time Germany used a V-2 rocket to bomb Britain.
Wow.
Oh.
As well. Also is when Germany used Zeppelins to bomb Britain.
Can we just call it now? It's not a good day.
That's not a good
It's
day,
not
but
a
we're
good
going to
day.
dive even deeper into this
That's
day.
the end.
Yes. So September
There's
8th,
still hope.
1974 was the day that President Gerald R. Ford, who is not the greatest of presidents,
No.
decided to pardon President Nixon.
Who is also not a
No, I'm calling it now. It's a terrible day.
No, we're not done
We're
yet.
calling it now.
For
not
all
done
of
yet.
his Watergate scandals. If you don't know what Watergate is, one of you guys want to give us a brief summary?
I mean,
Otherwise, I will say it from the
we
list.
we can do it as an episode, Michael.
Okay,
That
well,
is
I will
true.
tell you the quick summary of it.
It's a scandal.
It's a scandal that began in June 17, 1972. So September 8th is when President Nixon was fully pardoned for all of his crimes, in which burglars were arrested in the DNC, the Democratic National Committee. Basically, they were arrested for robbing the place when they were actually planting or fixing bugs. So the DNC was filled with little listening devices, so that way Nixon could record it all and get an advantage.
Wiretapping.
Yes, wiretapping, exactly. So they were wiretapping phones, they were stealing documents, all for Nixon, who was proven to be attached to this conspiracy, this scandal.
And this was for his re-election campaign?
Re-election.
Yes.
campaign,
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, and a secret informant called Deep Throat, who was
Yeah.
later revealed as W. Mark Felt, who was a former associate director of the FBI, none of this would have transpired, and more than likely Nixon would have never been convicted of this. Because I believe if he wasn't pardoned, he would have been impeached. And been the first
Yes. I
and been one of the
believe so.
first fully impeached presidents.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was bad.
It was a gut punch day.
It was a gut punch day.
Yeah.
And to finish off our lovely list of negatives, we have 3 separate plane crashes that happened on this day. On 1994, the hugest plane investigation ever happened, which was for U.S. Air Flight 427, which is when on approach to Pittsburgh International Airport, the flight suddenly crashed in clear weather, killing all 132 people who were upon the plane. It was determined that one of the rudders malfunctioned and just turned the plane and crashed it.
Gee.
Wow.
On 1989, we have Partner Flight 394, which dove into the North Sea, killing 55 people. The investigation showed that the tail of the plane vibrated loose, and then obviously without a tail to your plane, you cannot fly.
Whoa. It just, wow. It
And this
vibrated
is-
so much that it
Wow.
just came off.
Yeah, this is because the plane itself was substandard and the connecting bolts were fraudulently sold as aircraft grade. And then the last one was in 1970, the Trans International Airlines Flight 863 crashed during takeoff from JFK Airport in New York City and killed 11 aboard.
Oh, it was a little plane.
Yes. A little bit of human cost.
That was a little plane.
Still a loss of life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting. We went reverse timeline while also reverse number of people.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
That's
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we couldn't end on, like Siege of Leningrad.
Yeah.
We had to
couldn't do
phase
4
it out a
million.
little
Yeah.
Oh,
bit.
I had to throw it in there.
Soften.
There was a lot of airport, 3 in
Yeah.
since
Well,
planes have existed.
you
But
know-
I mean, it's weird that 3 of them lands on the same date.
That's true.
Same day. All of this stuff, same day. So overall, I'm taking it away as Star Trek, good. Other stuff, kind of good, kind of bad, mostly bad. And then it's really bad overall.
Yeah,
I
and
think it's a Bennett day.
this is what I want to throw out there. If you look at September 8th and then look at many things, there was a Black Friday massacre of 88 people that happened on this day. There was numerous wars and numerous killings and numerous deaths that happened on September 8th. I did not list them for fear of us being too sad by the end of the podcast, but there was a lot.
So if we were doing a tier list
Uh-huh.
of bad days, I'd probably put this as an A, not as an S yet.
So you mean tier list of being a bad day?
Yes. Yeah.
Of being the worst day
if,
ever.
If we put it like,
Okay.
the normal tier list, and then we just did bad day or negative day or whatever we want to call it, this would be, I feel like, an A. Not quite an S yet, but I think it's still bad enough to be over a B or C or D.
So you think the railroad in Star Trek managed to pull back Leningrad?
Yeah.
And
Well,
the worst hurricane in history.
I'm banking. I mean, we could promote it later, obviously, but I'm banking that there are worse days in history.
I mean, either way, it's still the first day. So this day is on top.
That's true.
Yeah. So
It is now the best and worst day
it
we've
is
covered.
the best and worst day we've covered so far.
Yeah.
So let us know if you like this tier list of days, if you want days tiered in a different way, and what other information about specific days you're looking for. You can let us know on social media, Generally Casual, and subscribing, letting us know through feedback on whatever channels you're on helps a lot, and we appreciate it. And we hope you have a better day on September 8th than these days.
Hashtag been September 8th.